biggest story in the country is that Republicans are considering an immigration deal. At least some Republicans are. It's being crafted in the Senate. You got Chuck Schumer going out there saying that this is great and that it's so bipartisan. And now I don't want to be overly simplistic, but that means that this is terrible. And the more you dive into this, the more you recognize right away this immigration deal, whatever it's going to be, is going to do nothing other than help Democrats and weak Republicans in a year where there should be a reckoning on the wide open border that we have. The headline here on the Wall Street Journal was Biden accedes to tougher immigration policy to deflect criticism and secure Ukraine aid. Clay, there's so much going on here that's wrong, but here's Republican Maria Salazar. It's actually my congresswoman, who is calling for legalization of everybody who has been here more than 5 years. Play 7.
It's very important because it's the only bill in Congress that is bipartisan. And not only that, it accomplishes exactly what the country needs: to seal the border, secure the border. And once that is done, once that border is secured, then we look back and we give some type of dignity to those people who have been here for more than 5 years, who are contributing with your economy. Like my colleague said, dignity is not an immigration reform law. This is a national security, it's an economic bill, because you know that the business sector is saying we need hands. Those hands are here. We just need to legalize them. I'm not talking about citizenship. I'm talking about dignity, not amnesty, dignity.
No, she's talking about amnesty, Clay. She can say it's dignity, but it's actually amnesty, and this is a disaster, and if Republicans fall for this, they deserve to get crushed in the fall.
Yeah, I think the entire concept here of trying to link aid for Ukraine and aid for our own border is broken at the outset. And I don't like the idea because what it presumes is some sort of grand bargain, but we shouldn't be bargaining when it comes to taking care of our own country's border security. And I give you credit because you were the first person that I ever heard say it. But the obsession that Joe Biden has had with protecting every square mile of Ukrainian territory, which, by the way, is going really bad in Ukraine. You know that you haven't heard anything really about Ukraine for some time since. Remember the much vaunted summer offensive that was coming from Ukraine that was going to put Russia back on its heels and was going to really make Vladimir Putin howl? It hasn't happened. And also, the Russian economy hasn't collapsed. In fact, all those Western business interests basically were just given to Vladimir Putin's capitalist crony oligarch friends. And so, for instance, McDonald's, they renamed and just handed all of the McDonald's assets, and I'm just using that as one company example, to a friend and a colleague and a supporter of Vladimir Putin. So the money actually has all gotten repatriated, the assets, into Russia, and they've become somewhat more reliant than they ever were before. And meanwhile, they have completely strengthened their lines, and now they are slowly beginning an advance against Ukraine, which doesn't have the manpower. I'm not talking about the material. They don't have the manpower, Buck. They have raised, I believe I'm correct in this, a conscription age in Ukraine for men up to 60 years old now. So if you are 18 to 60 in age, they are now drafting, you think about that, a 58 or 59-year-old guy. And I know some of you out there listening to me are in pretty good shape and you're 58 or 59. You're not, and nobody should be right now trying to live in a trench, but much less somebody who's approaching 60 years old. That's where Ukraine is. So this connection, Buck, at its most baseline level, I don't see it being combated very much by Republicans, just saying this is a non-starter on its face that we should ever link them in the first place.
It's all about evading accountability for the politicians who are going to sign on to this. Because what it does, by conflating things together in a bill that have actually nothing to do with each other, they can say, oh, well, it wasn't really about Ukraine. It was about securing our border. And the people who really just want to tell their constituents they're securing or that they're helping Ukraine can say, I don't really care about the border, but I needed to get Ukraine that money. This is why they do it. It's a version of even what we saw with COVID, where the politicians said, I'm not making decisions. It's the CDC. And the CDC said, it's not us. It's the politicians. Nobody is ever accountable. Don't let them get away with it. These things have nothing to do with each other. The bill that they are advancing is unserious if anyone cares about stopping illegal immigration in this country. Notice how she didn't talk about, well, what happens if you've been here less than 5 years, which we know by the time Biden's up for reelection, it'll be about 8 million people. And by the
Yeah.
way, well, what happens to them? Oh, we're going to wait and wait and wait until their court hearings happen, which is going to be in 10 years, if ever. And they're going to say, you know what? They've been here 10 years. They should stay too. We are not idiots. We see what they are trying to do. We recognize what they've done in the past when there have been these mass amnesties and this whole dignity, not amnesty thing. If it's so undignified, go back to your home country where you have legal residency. This is nonsense. The stuff that they are saying, Clay, we are losing our country. The Democrats are on their back heels. The numbers are terrible for them on this issue, terrible for Joe Biden on this issue. And we're going to give them a lifeline by having some crappy bipartisan border bill in the election year? It's insane.
Yeah, and here's something I would like to hear more discussion about, because even if Trump were to win and become president in 2024, what would happen is as soon as the mass deportations began, there would be lawsuits, there would be court shenanigans, there would be total media opposition to the idea that anybody should have to go back. They'll find kids getting separated, they allege, from their parents. What we really need is not just a wall. We have to eliminate the incentive for people to want to come here in the first place. And this is why I keep coming back to it, and I hear almost no one talking about it. We have to once and for all end the idea of birthright citizenship by soil in the United States. For people out there who don't understand, if your mom or dad are a citizen of the United States and you are born anywhere around the world, you should and would be still a citizen of the United States. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the idea that if you cross the Rio Grande River or you somehow fly in from China and decide to stay at a luxury hospital in LA for a couple of weeks, your kid that is then born on American soil should not automatically become an American citizen. You can't take away the incentive on jobs, but you can take away that incentive.
I agree with you, but that's more even of a long-term incentive structure, because we got 30 million illegals in the country right now, right? So yes, you're completely correct. We have to end birthright citizenship. That would be one piece of changing the incentive structure. The immediate piece, though, or the thing that has to happen as soon as you have a Republican president in office, which God willing is going to be almost 1 year to the day from now, right?
Yeah.
Is you're going to deport people who have come here illegally in large numbers, not 100,000 a year. It's going to have to be 500,000 to 1 million a year.
It's going to have to be millions to really impact things.
That's right.
Because at the rate people are coming in, unless you take people out at millions at a time, the numbers keep going up, right? That's the challenge.
I saw the Biden number. They're like, we've deported 400,000 people. I'm like, you've let in 7 million. You've deported 400,000. Those are good odds. And by the way, how many of those 400,000, have actually committed serious crimes or are being deported for a specific reason beyond just their illegality in this country? But the fact that Republicans are even talking about this, I mean, let's remember something here. The corrective mechanism to our wide open border is to punish those who are in power who decided to do this and put people in power who at least have the possibility of correcting it. Joe Biden came into office. I want to remind everybody of this. Day one, he says we are stopping all deportations, Clay. I think it's for 100 days, right? 90 days or 100 days. I think it was 100 days. Ceasing all deportations, stopping the Remain in Mexico program. What you are seeing happening at the border now is not an accident. It is the result they wanted. It is a direct consequence of what Joe Biden and the left-wing Democrats wanted for this country. And now that people are seeing it, and Clay, the numbers that are coming out about how people feel about this is why they're pretending that they care all of a sudden. You've got 68% of the country, I think. 68% disapprove of Joe Biden on the border. 63% they say they want it to be tougher. That's of all adults surveyed, okay? If you're losing almost 70% on an issue going into an election year, and it's one of the primary issues in all the polling, you're in big trouble.
I also want people to understand, be smart about what they are trying to set up here. If you refuse they're going to try to blame Republicans for what's going on at the border. They're already trying it. Understand what you are being set up for here. If you won't support Ukraine and the border connected, they're going to put Ukraine off to the side, and Joe Biden is going to go out and he's going to start making aggressive speeches because the numbers are so bad, Buck. He's going to go out and say Republicans won't clean up the border, and he's going to try to get that confused for voters out
He
there.
will try. This is one where I am very confident he will fail. Enough because of New York and what's happening on the streets there, because of Chicago, because of these cities and the migrants and the clogged emergency rooms and the school rooms that are overflowing and kids can't get an education and all the resources and the end of trash pickup, 40% reduction of trash pickup in New York City. Clay, people see this in a way that they haven't before. So you're completely correct in my estimation. Biden's going to try that, but it won't work. The only way it works is if some of the worst Republicans in the United States Congress manage to get their way and pass some kind of immigration bipartisan bill that then gives the Democrats cover to say, we understand it's a problem. Biden signed it. We are working on it.
Yeah.
That's lunacy to do that. That is lunacy. So, I am fired up about this one because if you look at the names here, I actually wrote down some of the names of who's involved in this one. I mean, you're looking at McConnell, Graham, Tillis, Langford. Those are the Republicans in the Senate.
And I get why people are frustrated. There are an awful lot of people that it doesn't matter what political party they represent. They're just going to go along to get along.
It's the rhino pen that is supporting this. Truly, rhinoceros horns all over the place. Rhino pen. They are trying to push this through. It is a disaster. Do not let them get away with this. Every time they tell you something is not amnesty, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican, it's an amnesty. If they have to say it's not an amnesty, it's an amnesty.